The French Revolution, A History. By Thomas Carlyle. 1837. Narrated by Skeptical Waves. Book 2-4. Varennes. Chapter 2.4.I. Easter at St. Cloud. The French monarchy may now therefore be considered as, in all human probability, lost, as struggling henceforth in blindness as well as weakness, the last light of reasonable guidance having gone out. What remains of resources their poor majesties will waste still further, in uncertain loitering and wavering. Mirabeau himself had to complain that they only gave him half confidence, and always had some plan within his plan. Had they fled frankly with him to Rouen or anywhither, long ago, they may fly now with chance immeasurably lessened, which will go on lessening towards absolute zero. Decide, O Queen, poor Louis can decide nothing, execute this flight project, or at least abandon it. Correspondence with Bouy there has been enough, what profits consulting, and hypothesis, while all around is in fierce activity of practice? The rustic sits waiting till the river run dry, alas with you it is not a common river, but a Nile inundation, snow melting in the unseen mountains, till all, and you where you sit, be submerged. Many things invite to flight. The voice journals invites, royalist journals proudly hinting it as a threat, patriot journals rabidly denouncing it as a terror. Mother Society, waxing more and more emphatic, invites, so emphatic that, as was prophesied, Lafayette and your limited patriots have ere long to branch off from her and form themselves into foyons, with infinite public controversy, the victory in which, doubtful though it look, will remain with the UN limited mother. Moreover, ever since the day of poniards, we have seen unlimited patriotism openly equipping itself with arms. Citizens denied activity, which is facetiously made to signify a certain weight of purse, cannot buy blue uniforms, and be guardsmen, but man is greater than blue cloth, man can fight, if need be, in multiform cloth, or even almost without cloth, as sansculotte. So pikes continued to be hammered, whether those dirks of improved structure with barbs be meant for the West India market, or not meant. Men beat, the wrong way, their plowshares into swords. Is there not what we may call an Austrian committee, Comité Autrichien, sitting daily and nightly in the Tuileries? Patriotism, by vision and suspicion, knows it too well. If the king fly, will there not be aristocrat Austrian invasion, butchery, replacement of feudalism, wars more than civil? The hearts of men are saddened and maddened. Dissident priests likewise give trouble enough. Expelled from their parish churches, where constitutional priests, elected by the public, have replaced them, these unhappy persons resort to convents of nuns, or other such receptacles, and there, on Sabbath, collecting assemblages of anti-constitutional individuals, who have grown devout all on a sudden, they worship or pretend to worship in their straight-laced contumacious manner, to the scandal of patriotism. Dissident priests, passing along with their sacred wafer for the dying, seem wishful to be massacred in the streets, wherein patriotism will not gratify them. Slighter palm of martyrdom, however, shall not be denied, martyrdom not of massacre, yet of fustigation. At the refractory places of worship, patriot men appear, patriot women with strong hazel wands, which they apply. Shut thy eyes, O reader, see not this misery, peculiar to these later times, of martyrdom without sincerity, with only cant and contumacy. A dead Catholic Church is not allowed to lie dead, no, it is galvanized into the detestablest death life, whereat humanity, we say, shuts its eyes. For the patriot women take their hazel wands, and fustigate, amid laughter of bystanders, with alacrity, broad bottom of priests, alas, nuns too reversed, and cotillons retrousses. The National Guard does what it can, municipality invokes the principles of toleration, grants dissident worshippers the Church of the Theatins, promising protection. But it is to no purpose, at the door of that Theatins church, appears a placard, and suspended atop, like plebeian consular fasces, a bundle of rods. The principles of toleration must do the best they may, but no dissident man shall worship contumaciously. There is a plebiscitum to that effect, which, though unspoken, is like the laws of the Medes and Persians. Dissident contumacious priests ought not to be harbored, even in private, by any man. The Club of the Cordeliers openly denounces Majesty himself as doing it. Many things invite to flight, but probably this thing above all others, that it has become impossible. On the 15th of April, notice is given that His Majesty, who has suffered much from catarrh lately, will enjoy the spring weather, for a few days, at St. Cloud. Out at St. Cloud? Wishing to celebrate his Easter, his Pâques, or Pasch, there, with refractory anti-constitutional dissidents? Wishing rather to make off for Compiègne, and thence to the frontiers? As were, in good sooth, perhaps feasible, or would once have been, nothing but some two chasseurs attending you, chasseurs easily corrupted. It is a pleasant possibility, execute it or not. Men say there are 30,000 chevaliers of the poniard lurking in the woods there, lurking in the woods, and 30,000, for the human imagination is not fettered. But now, how easily might these, dashing out on Lafayette, snatch off the hereditary representative, and roll away with him, after the manner of a whirlblast, whither they listed. Enough, it were well the king did not go. Lafayette is forewarned and forearmed, but, indeed, is the risk his only, or his and all France's? Monday the 18th of April is come, the Easter journey to St. Cloud shall take effect. National Guard has got its orders, a 1st Division, as advanced guard, has even marched, and probably arrived. His Majesty's Maison Bouche, they say, is all busy stewing and frying at St. Cloud, the king's dinner not far from ready there. About 1 o'clock, the royal carriage, with its 8 royal blacks, shoots stately into the Place du Carrousel, draws up to receive its royal burden. But hark! From the neighboring church of Saint-Roch, the tocsin begins ding-donging. Is the king stolen then? He is gone? Multitudes of persons crowd the carousel, the royal carriage still stands there, and, by heaven's strength, shall stand. Lafayette comes up, with aide-de-camps and oratory, pervading the groups, taisez-vous, answer the groups, the king shall not go. Monsieur appears, at an upper window, 10,000 voices bray and shriek, nous ne voulons pas que la roi party. Their majesties have mounted. Crack go the whips, but 20 patriot arms have seized each of the 8 bridles, there is rearing, rocking, vociferation, not the smallest headway. In vain does Lafayette fret, indignant, and perorate and strive, patriots in the passion of terror, bellow round the royal carriage, it is one bellowing sea of patriot terror run frantic. Will royalty fly off towards Austria, like a lit rocket, towards endless conflagration of civil war? Stop it, ye patriots, in the name of heaven. Rude voices passionately apostrophize royalty itself. Usher Campan, and other the like official persons, pressing forward with help or advice, are clutched by the sashes, and hurled and whirled, in a confused perilous manner, so that Her Majesty has to plead passionately from the carriage window. Order cannot be heard, cannot be followed, National Guards know not how to act. Centre Grenadiers, of the Observatoire Battalion, are there, not on duty, alas, in quasi-mutiny, speaking rude disobedient words, threatening the mounted guards with sharp shot if they hurt the people. Lafayette mounts and dismounts, runs haranguing, panting, on the verge of despair. For an hour and 3/4, 7/4 of an hour, by the Tuileries clock. Desperate Lafayette will open a passage, were it by the cannon's mouth, if His Majesty will order. Their Majesties, counselled to it by royalist friends, by patriot foes, dismount, and retire in, with heavy indignant heart, giving up the enterprise. Maison Bouche may eat that cooked dinner themselves, His Majesty shall not see St. Cloud this day, or any day. The pathetic fable of imprisonment in one's own palace has become a sad fact, then? Majesty complains to Assembly, municipality deliberates, proposes to petition or address, sections respond with sullen brevity of negation. Lafayette flings down his commission, appears in civic pepper and salt frock, and cannot be flattered back again, not in less than 3 days, and by unheard of entreaty, National Guards kneeling to him, and declaring that it is not sycophancy, that they are free men kneeling here to the Statue of Liberty. For the rest, those Centre Grenadiers of the Observatoire are disbanded, yet indeed are re-enlisted, all but 14, under a new name, and with new quarters. The king must keep his Easter in Paris, meditating much on this singular posture of things, but is good as determined now to fly from it, desire being whetted by difficulty. Chapter 2.42 Easter at Paris. For above a year, ever since March 1790, it would seem, there has hovered a project of flight before the royal mind, and ever and anon has been condensing itself into something like a purpose, but this or the other difficulty always vaporized it again. It seems so full of risks, perhaps of civil war itself. Above all, it cannot be done without effort. Somnolent laziness will not serve. To fly, if not in a leather vache, one must verily stir himself. Better to adopt that constitution of theirs, execute it so as to show all men that it is inexecutable? Better or not so good, surely it is easier. To all difficulties you need only say, there is a lion in the path, behold your constitution will not act. For a somnolent person it requires no effort to counterfeit death, as Dame de Staël and friends of liberty can see the king's government long doing, face on la mort. Nay now, when desire wedded by difficulty has brought the matter to a head, and the royal mind no longer halts between two, what can come of it? Grant that poor Louis were safe with Bouilly, what on the whole could he look for there? Exasperated tickets of entry answer, much, all. But cold reason answers, little almost nothing. Is not loyalty a law of nature? Ask the tickets of entry. Is not love of your king, and even death for him, the glory of all Frenchmen, except these few Democrats? Let Democrat constitution builders see what they will do without their keystone, and France rend its hair, having lost the hereditary representative. Thus will King Louis fly, one sees not reasonably towards what? As a maltreated boy, shall we say, who, having a stepmother, rushes sulky into the wide world, and will wring the paternal heart? Poor Louis escapes from known unsupportable evils, to an unknown mixture of good and evil, colored by hope. He goes, as Rabelais did when dying, to seek a great maybe, je vais chercher un grand peut-être. As not only the sulky boy but the wise grown man is obliged to do, so often, in emergencies. For the rest, there is still no lack of stimulants, and stepdame maltreatments, to keep one's resolution at the due pitch. Factious disturbance ceases not, as indeed how can they, unless authoritatively conjured, in a revolt which is by nature bottomless? If the ceasing of faction be the price of the king's somnolence, he may awake when he will, and take wing. Remark, in any case, what somersets and contortions a dead Catholicism is making, skillfully galvanized, hideous, and even piteous, to behold. Durant and dissident, with their shaved crowns, argue frothing everywhere, or are ceasing to argue, and stripping for battle. In Paris was scourging while need continued, contrariwise, in the Morbihan of Brittany, without scourging, armed peasants are up, roused by pulpit drum, they know not why. General Dumouriez, who has got mission thitherward, finds all in sour heat of darkness, finds also that explanation and conciliation will still do much. But again, consider this, that His Holiness, Pius VI, has seen good to excommunicate Bishop Talleyrand. Surely, we will say then, considering it, there is no living or dead church in the earth that has not the indubitablest right to excommunicate Talleyrand. Pope Pius has right and might, in his way. But truly so likewise as Father Adam, ci devant Marquis Saint Huruge, in his way. Behold, therefore, on the 4th of May, in the Palais Royal, a mixed loud-sounding multitude, in the middle of whom, Father Adam, bull-voiced Saint Huruge, in white hat, towers visible and audible. With him, it is said, walks journalist Gorses, walk many others of the washed sort, for no authority will interfere. Pius VI, with his plush and tiara, and power of the keys, they bear aloft, of natural size, made of lath and combustible gum. Royou, the king's friend, is borne to in effigy, with a pile of newspaper king's friends, condemned numbers of the M.E. du ROI, fit fuel of the sacrifice. Speeches are spoken, a judgment is held, a doom proclaimed, audible in bold voice, towards the four winds. And thus, amid great shouting, the Holocaust is consummated, under the summer sky, and our lath and gum holiness, with the attendant victims, mounts up in flame, and sinks down in ashes, a decomposed pope, and right or might, among all the parties, has better or worse accomplished itself, as it could. But, on the whole, reckoning from Martin Luther in the marketplace of Wittenberg to Marquis Saint Huruge in this Palais Royal of Paris, what a journey have we gone, into what strange territories has it carried us. No authority can now interfere. Nay, religion herself, mourning for such things, may after all ask, what have I to do with them? In such extraordinary manner does dead Catholicism somerset and caper, skillfully galvanized. For, does the reader inquire into the subject matter of controversy in this case, what the difference between orthodoxy or my doxy and heterodoxy or thy doxy might here be? My doxy is that an august National Assembly can equalize the extent of bishoprics, that an equalized bishop, his creed and formularies being left quite as they were, can swear fidelity to king, law, and nation, and so become a constitutional bishop. Thy doxy, if thou be dissident, is that he cannot, but that he must become an accursed thing. Human ill nature needs but some homoousion iota, or even the pretense of one, and will flow copiously through the eye of a needle, thus always must mortals go jargoning and fuming. And, like the ancient Stoics in their porches with fierce dispute maintain their churches. This auto de fe of Saint Huruge's was on the 4th of May, 1791. Royalty sees it, but says nothing. Chapter 2.43. Count Fersen. Royalty, in fact, should, by this time, be far on with its preparations. Unhappily much preparation is needful. Could a hereditary representative be carried in leather vache, how easy were it? But it is not so. New clothes are needed, as usual, in all epic transactions, were it in the grimmest iron ages. Consider Queen Kriemhilde, with her 60 seamstresses, in that iron Nibelung in song. No queen can stir without new clothes. Therefore, now, Dame Campan whisks assiduous to this mantua maker and to that, and there is clipping of frocks and gowns, upper close and under, great and small, such a clipping and sewing, as might have been dispensed with. Moreover, her Majesty cannot go a step anywhither without her nécessaire, dear nécessaire, of inlaid ivory and rosewood, cunningly devised, which holds perfumes, toilet implements, infinite small queen-like furnitures, necessary to terrestrial life. Not without a cost of some 500 louis, of much precious time, and difficult hoodwinking which does not blind, can this same necessary of life be forwarded by the Flanders carriers, never to get to hand. All which, you would say, augurs ill for the prospering of the enterprise. But the whims of women and queens must be humored. Bouilly, on his side, is making a fortified camp at Montmedy, gathering Royal Allemand, and all manner of other German and true French troops thither, to watch the Austrians. His Majesty will not cross the frontiers, unless on compulsion. Neither shall the emigrants be much employed, hateful as they are to all people. Nor shall old war god Broglie have any hand in the business, but solely our brave Bouilly, to whom, on the day of meeting, a marshal's baton shall be delivered, by a rescued king, amid the shouting of all the troops. In the meanwhile, Paris being so suspicious, were it not perhaps good to write your foreign ambassadors an ostensible constitutional letter, desiring all kings and men to take heed that King Louis loves the Constitution, that he has voluntarily sworn, and does again swear, to maintain the same, and will reckon those his enemies who affect to say otherwise? Such a constitutional circular is dispatched by couriers, is communicated confidentially to the Assembly, and printed in all newspapers, with the finest effect. Simulation and dissimulation mingle extensively in human affairs. We observe, however, that Count Fersen is often using his ticket of entry, which surely he has clear right to do. A gallant soldier and Swede, devoted to this fair queen, as indeed the highest Swede now is. Has not King Gustav, famed fiery Chevalier du Nord, sworn himself, by the old laws of chivalry, her knight? He will descend on fire wings, of Swedish musketry, and deliver her from these foul dragons, if, alas, the assassin's pistol intervene not. But, in fact, Count Fersen does seem a likely young soldier, of alert decisive ways, he circulates widely, seen, unseen, and has business on hand. Also Colonel the Duc de Choiseul, nephew of Choiseul the Great, of Choiseul the now deceased, he and Engineer Gauglade are passing and repassing between Metz and the Tuileries, and letters go in cipher, one of them, a most important one, hard to decipher, Fersen having ciphered it in haste. As for Duc de Villequier, he is gone ever since the day of poniards, but his apartment is useful for Her Majesty. On the other side, poor Commandant Gouvion, watching at the Tuileries, second in national command, sees several things hard to interpret. It is the same Gouvion who sat, long months ago, at the town hall, gazing helpless into that insurrection of women, motionless as the brave stabled steed when conflagration rises, till Usher Maillard snatched his drum. Sincere patriot there is not, but many a shiftier. He, if Dame Campan gossip credibly, is paying some similitude of love court to a certain false chambermaid of the palace, who betrays much to him, the nécessaire, the clothes, the packing of the jewels, could he understand it when betrayed. Helpless Gouvion gazes with sincere glassy eyes into it, stirs up his sentries to vigilance, walks restless to and fro, and hopes the best. But, on the whole, one finds that, in the second week of June, Colonel de Choiseul is privately in Paris, having come to see his children. Also that Fersen has got a stupendous new coach built, of the kind named Berlin, done by the first artists, according to a model. They bring it home to him, in Choiseul's presence, the two friends take a proof drive in it, along the streets, in meditative mood, then send it up to Madame Sullivan's, in the Rue de Clichy, far north, to wait there till want it. Apparently a certain Russian Baroness de Korff, with waiting woman, valet, and 2 children, will travel homewards with some state, in whom these young military gentlemen take interest. A passport has been procured for her, and much assistance shown, with coach builders and such like, so helpful polite are young military men. Fersen has likewise purchased a chaise fit for 2, at least for 2 waiting maids, further, certain necessary horses. One would say, he is himself quitting France, not without outlay. We observe finally that their Majesties, heaven willing, will assist at Corpus Christi Day, this blessed summer solstice, in Assumption Church, here at Paris, to the joy of all the world. For which same day, moreover, brave Bouilly, at Metz, as we find, has invited a party of friends to dinner, but indeed is gone from home, in the interim, over to Montmedy. These are of the phenomena, or visual appearances, of this wide working terrestrial world, which truly is all phenomenal, what they call spectral, and never rests at any moment, one never at any moment can know why. On Monday night, the 20th of June 1791, about 11 o'clock, there is many a hackney coach, and glass coach, Carrosse de remise, still rumbling, or at rest, on the streets of Paris. But of all glass coaches, we recommend this to thee, O reader, which stands drawn up, in the Rue de l'Echelle, hard by the Carousel and outgate of the Tuileries, in the Rue de l'Echelle that then was, opposite Ronson the saddler's door, as if waiting for a fare there. Not long does it wait, a hooded dame, with 2 hooded children has issued from Villequier's door, where no sentry walks, into the Tuileries Court of Princes, into the Carousel, into the Rue de l'Echelle, where the glass coachman readily admits them, and again waits. Not long, another dame, likewise hooded or shrouded, leaning on a servant, issues in the same manner, by the glass coachman, cheerfully admitted. Whither go so many dames? 'Tis his Majesty's couchy, Majesty just gone to bed, and all the palace world is retiring home. But the glass coachman still waits, his fare seemingly incomplete. By and by, we note a thick-set individual, in round hat and peruke, arm in arm with some servant, seemingly of the runner or courier sort. He also issues through Villequier's door, starts a shoe buckle as he passes one of the sentries, stoops down to clasp it again, is however, by the glass coachman, still more cheerfully admitted. And now, is his fare complete? Not yet, the glass coachman still waits. Alas! And the false chambermaid has warned Gouvion that she thinks the royal family will fly this very night, and Gouvion, distrusting his own glazed eyes, has sent express for Lafayette, and Lafayette's carriage, flaring with lights, rolls this moment through the inner arch of the Carousel, where a lady shaded in broad gypsy hat, and leaning on the arm of a servant, also of the runner or courier sort, stands aside to let it pass, and has even the whim to touch a spoke of it with her badine, light little magic rod which she calls badine, such as the beautiful then wore. The flare of Lafayette's carriage rolls past, all is found quiet in the court of princes, sentries at their post, Majesty's apartments closed in smooth rest. Your false chambermaid must have been mistaken? Watch thou, Gouvion, with Argus vigilance, for, of a truth, treachery is within these walls. But where is the lady that stood aside in gypsy hat, and touched the will spoke with her badine? O reader, that lady that touched the will spoke was the Queen of France. She has issued safe through that inner arch, into the Carousel itself, but not into the Rue de l'Echelle. Flurried by the rattle and rencounter, she took the right hand not the left, neither she nor her courier knows Paris. He indeed is no courier, but a loyal stupid ci devant bodyguard disguised as one. They are off, quite wrong, over the Pont Royal and river, roaming disconsolate in the Rue du Bac, far from the glass coachman, who still waits. Waits, with flutter of heart, with thoughts, which he must button close up, under his jarvie surtout. Midnight clangs from all the city steeples, one precious hour has been spent so, most mortals are asleep. The glass coachman waits, and what mood? A brother jarvie drives up, enters into conversation, is answered cheerfully in jarvie dialect, the brothers of the whip exchange a pinch of snuff, decline drinking together, and part with good night. Be the heavens blessed. Here at length is the queen lady, in gypsy hat, safe after perils, who has had to inquire her way. She too is admitted, her courier jumps aloft, as the other, who is also a disguised bodyguard, has done, and now, O glass coachman of 1,000, Count Fersen, for the reader sees it as thou, drive. Dust shall not stick to the hoofs of Fersen, crack. Crack. The glass coach rattles, and every soul breathes lighter. But is Fersen on the right road? Northeastward, to the barrier of Saint-Martin and Metz highway, thither were we bound, and lo, he drives right northward. The royal individual, in round hat and peruke, sits astonished, but right or wrong, there is no remedy. Crack, crack, we go incessant, through the slumbering city. Seldom, since Paris rose out of mud, or the long-haired kings went in bullock carts, was there such a drive. Mortals on each hand of you, close by, stretched out horizontal, dormant, and we alive and quaking. Crack, crack, through the Rue de Grammont, across the boulevard, up the Rue de la Chaussée d'Antin, these windows, all silent, of number 42 or Mirabeau's. Towards the barrier not of Saint-Martin, but of Clichy on the utmost north. Patience, ye royal individuals, Fersen understands what he is about. Passing up the Rue de Clichy, he alights for one moment at Madame Sullivan's. Did Count Fersen's coachman get the Baroness de Corf's New Berlin ? Gone with it an hour and a half ago, grumbles responsive the drowsy porter. C'est bien. Yes, it is well, though had not such hour and a half been lost, it were still better. Forth therefore, O Fersen, fast, by the barrier de Clichy, then eastward along the outward boulevard, what horses and whipcord can do. Thus Fersen drives, through the ambrosial night. Sleeping Paris is now all on the right hand of him, silent except for some snoring hum, and now he is eastward as far as the barrier de Saint-Martin, looking earnestly for Baroness de Korf's Berlin. This heaven's Berlin he at length does descry, drawn up with its 6 horses, his own German coachman waiting on the box. Right, thou good German, now haste, whither thou knowest. And as for us of the glass coach, haste too, oh haste, much time is already lost. The August glass coach fair, 6 insides, hastily packs itself into the new Berlin, 2 bodyguard couriers behind. The glass coach itself is turned adrift, its head towards the city, to wander whither it lists, and be found next morning tumbled in a ditch. But Fersen is on the new box, with its brave new hammer cloths, flourishing his whip, he bolts forward towards Bindi. There a 3rd and final bodyguard courier of ours ought surely to be, with post horses ready ordered. There likewise ought that purchased chaise, with the 2 waiting maids and their bandboxes to be, whom also her majesty could not travel without. Swift, thou deft Fersen, and may the heavens turn it well. Once more, by heaven's blessing, it is all well. Here is the sleeping hamlet of Bindi, chaise with waiting women, horses all ready, and postilion with their churn boots, impatient in the dewy dawn. Brief harnessing done, the postilion with their churn boots vault into the saddles, brandish circularly their little noisy whips. Fersen, under his jarvies or 2, bends in lowly silent reverence of adieu, royal hands wave speechless inexpressible response, Baroness de Korf's Berlin, with the royalty of France, bounds off forever as it proved. Deft Fersen dashes obliquely northward, through the country, towards Bougret, gains Bougret, finds his German coachman and chariot waiting there, cracks off, and drives undiscovered into unknown space. A deft active man, we say, what he undertook to do is nimbly and successfully done. And so the royalty of France is actually fled? This precious night, the shortest of the year, it flies and drives. Baroness de Korf is, at bottom, Dame de Tourzel, governess of the royal children, she who came hooded with the 2 hooded little ones, little Dauphin, little Madame Royale, known long afterwards as Duchess d'Angoulême. Baroness de Korf's waiting maid is the queen in gypsy hat. The royal individual in round hat and peruke, he is valet, for the time being. That other hooded dame, styled travelling companion, is kind sister Elizabeth. She had sworn, long since, when the insurrection of women was, that only death should part her and them. And so they rush there, not too impetuously, through the wood of Bindi, over a Rubicon in their own and France's history. Great, though the future is all vague. If we reach Bouy? If we do not reach him? O Louis! And this all round thee is the great slumbering earth, and overhead, the great watchful heaven, the slumbering wood of Bindi, where long-haired Childeric do nothing was struck through with iron, not unreasonably. These peaked stone towers are Rancy, towers of wicked d'Orléans. All slumber save the multiplex rustle of our new Berlin. Loose-skirted scarecrow of an herb merchant, with his ass and early greens, toilsomely plodding, seems the only creature we meet. But right ahead the great northeast sends up evermore at his grey brindled dawn, from dewy branch, birds here and there, with short deep warble, salute the coming sun. Stars fade out, and galaxies, street lamps of the city of God. The universe, O my brothers, is flinging wide its portals for the levee of the great high king. Thou, poor King Louis, farest nevertheless, as mortals do, towards orient lands of hope, and the Tuileries with its levees, and France and the earth itself, is but a larger kind of dog hutch, occasionally going rabid. Chapter 2.44. Attitude. But in Paris, at 6 in the morning, when some patriot deputy, warned by a billet, awoke Lafayette and they went to the Tuileries? Imagination may paint, but words cannot, the surprise of Lafayette, or with what bewilderment helpless Gouvion rolled glassy Argus's eyes, discerning now that his false chambermaid told true. However, it is to be recorded that Paris, thanks to an august National Assembly, did, on this seeming doomsday, surpass itself. Never, according to historian eyewitnesses, was there seen such an imposing attitude. Sections all in permanence, our town hall, too, having first, about 10 o'clock, fired 3 solemn alarm cannons, above all, our National Assembly. National Assembly, likewise permanent, decides what is needful, with unanimous consent, for the Côte d'Oie sits dumb, afraid of the lanterne. Decides with a calm promptitude, which rises towards the sublime. One must needs vote, for the thing is self-evident, that His Majesty has been abducted, or spirited away, in leave, by some person or persons unknown, in which case, what will the Constitution have us do? Let us return to first principles, as we always say, revenens o principes. By first or by second principles, much is promptly decided, ministers are sent for, instructed how to continue their functions, Lafayette is examined, and Gouvion, who gives a most helpless account, the best he can. Letters are found written, one letter, of immense magnitude, all in His Majesty's hand, and evidently of His Majesty's own composition, addressed to the National Assembly. It details, with earnestness, with a childlike simplicity, what woes His Majesty has suffered. Woes great and small, a necker seen applauded, a majesty not, then insurrection, one of due cash in civil list, general one of cash, furniture and order, anarchy everywhere, deficit never yet, in the smallest, choked or comble, wherefore in brief His Majesty has retired towards a place of liberty, and, leaving sanctions, federation, and what oaths there may be, to shift for themselves, does now refer, to what, thinks an august assembly? To that declaration of the 23rd of June, with its soleil fera, He alone will make His people happy. As if that were not buried, deep enough, under 2 irrevocable 12 months, and the wreck and rubbish of a whole feudal world. This strange autograph letter the National Assembly decides on printing, on transmitting to the 83 departments, with exegetic commentary, short but pithy. Commissioners also shall go forth on all sides, the people be exhorted, the armies be increased, care taken that the commonweal suffer no damage. And now, with a sublime air of calmness, nay of indifference, we pass to the order of the day. By such sublime calmness, the terror of the people is calmed. These gleaming pike forests, which bristled fateful in the early sun, disappear again, the far-sounding street orators cease, or spout milder. We are to have a civil war, let us have it then. The king is gone, but National Assembly, but France and we remain. The people also takes a great attitude, the people also is calm, motionless as a couchant lion. With but a few brewlings, some waggings of the tail, to show what it will do. Cazales, for instance, was beset by street groups, and cries of lanterne, but national patrols easily delivered him. Likewise all kings' effigies and statues, at least stucco ones, get abolished. Even kings' names, the word ROI fades suddenly out of all shop signs, the Royal Bengal tiger itself, on the boulevards, becomes the National Bengal one, Tigre National. How great is a calm couchant people! On the morrow, men will say to one another, we have no king, yet we slept sound enough. On the morrow, fervent Achille de Châtelet, and Thomas Paine the rebellious needleman, shall have the walls of Paris profusely plastered with their placard, announcing that there must be a republic. Need we add that Lafayette too, though at first menaced by pikes, has taken a great attitude, or indeed the greatest of all? Scouts and aides-de-camp fly forth, vague, in quest and pursuit, young Roe moved towards Valenciennes, though with small hope. Thus Paris, sublimely calm, in its bereavement. But from the messageries royals, in all mailbags, radiates forth far darting the electric news, our hereditary representative is flown. Laugh, black royalists, yet be it in your sleeve only, less patriotism notice, and waxing frantic, lower the lanterne. In Paris alone is a sublime National Assembly with its calmness, truly, other places must take it as they can, with open mouth and eyes, with panic cackling, with wrath, with conjecture. How each one of those dull leathern diligences, with its leathern bag and the king is fled, furrows up smooth France as it goes, through town and hamlet, ruffles the smooth public mind into quivering agitation of death terror, then lumbers on, as if nothing had happened. Along all highways, towards the utmost borders, till all France is ruffled, roughened up, metaphorically speaking, into one enormous, desperate-minded, red-guggling turkey-cock. For example, it is under cloud of night that the leathern monster reaches Nantes, deep sunk in sleep. The word spoken rouses all patriot men. General Dumouriez, enveloped in roquelaures, has to descend from his bedroom, finds the street covered with 4,000 or 5,000 citizens in their shirts. Here and there a faint farthing rushlight, hastily kindled, and so many swart-featured haggard faces, with nightcaps pushed back, and the more or less flowing drapery of nightshirt, open-mouthed till the general say his word. And overhead, as always, the great bear is turning so quiet round Boades, steady, indifferent as the leathern diligence itself. Take comfort, ye men of Nantes, Boades and the steady bear are turning, ancient Atlantic still sends his brine, loud billowing, up your Loire stream, brandy shall be hot in the stomach, this is not the last of the days, but one before the last. The fools! If they knew what was doing, in these very instants, also by candlelight in the far northeast. Perhaps we may say the most terrified man in Paris or France is, who thinks the reader? Sea green Robespierre. Double paleness, with the shadow of gibbets and halters, overcasts the sea-green features. It is too clear to him that there is to be a Saint Bartholomew of patriots, that in 24 hours he will not be in life. These horrid anticipations of the soul he is heard uttering at Pétion's, by a notable witness. By Madame Roland, namely, her whom we saw, last year, radiant at the Lions' Federation. These 4 months, the Rolands have been in Paris, arranging with assembly committees the municipal affairs of Lyons, affairs all sunk in debt, communing, the while, as was most natural, with the best patriots to be found here, with our Brissotts, Pichons, Buzos, Robespierre, who were wont to come to us, says the fair hostess, 4 evenings in the week. They, running about, busier than ever this day, would fain have comforted the sea-green man, spake of Achille du Châtelet's placard, of a journal to be called the Republican, of preparing men's minds for a republic. A republic? Said the sea-green, with one of his dry husky unsportful laughs, what is that? O sea-green incorruptible, thou shalt see. Chapter 2.4.v. The New Berlin. But scouts all this while and aides-de-camps, have flown forth faster than the leathern diligences. Young Romouf, as we said, was off early towards Valenciennes. Distracted villagers seize him, as a traitor with a finger of his own in the plot, drag him back to the town hall, to the National Assembly, which speedily grants a new passport. Nay now, that same scarecrow of an herb merchant with his ass has bethought him of the grand New Berlin scene in the wood of Bondy, and delivered evidence of it. Romouf, furnished with new passport, is sent forth with double speed on a hopefuller track, by Bondy, Clay, and Chalon, towards Metz, to track the New Berlin, and gallops off Francotrier. Miserable New Berlin. Why could not royalty go in some old Berlin similar to that of other men? Flying for life, one does not stickle about his vehicle. Monsieur, in a commonplace travelling carriage is off northwards, Madame, his princess, in another, with variation of route, they cross one another while changing horses, without look of recognition, and reach Flanders, no man questioning them. Precisely in the same manner, beautiful Princess de Lamballe set off, about the same hour, and will reach England safe, would she had continued there. The beautiful, the good, but the unfortunate, reserved for a frightful end. All runs along, unmolested, speedy, except only the New Berlin. Huge leathern vehicle, huge argosy, let us say, or Acapulco ship, with its heavy stern boat of chaise and pair, with its 3 yellow pilot boats of mounted bodyguard couriers, rocking aimless round it and ahead of it, to bewilder, not to guide. It lumbers along, lurchingly with stress, at a snail's pace, noted of all the world. The bodyguard couriers, in their yellow liveries, go prancing and clattering, loyal but stupid, unacquainted with all things. Stoppages occur, and breakages to be repaired at etoges. King Louis II will dismount, will walk up hills, and enjoy the blessed sunshine, with 11 horses and double drink money, and all furtherances of nature and art. It will be found that royalty, flying for life, accomplishes 69 miles in 22 incessant hours. Slow royalty. And yet not a minute of these hours but is precious, on minutes hang the destinies of royalty now. Readers, therefore, can judge in what humor Duc de Choiseul might stand waiting, in the village of Pont de Somervel, some leagues beyond Chalon, hour after hour, now when the day bends visibly westward. Choiseul drove out of Paris, in all privity, 10 hours before their Majesties' fixed time. His hussars, led by Engineer Goglat, are here duly, come to escort a treasure that is expected, but, hour after hour, is no Baroness de Corf's Berlin. Indeed, over all that northeast region, on the skirts of Champagne and of Lorraine, where the great road runs, the agitation is considerable. For all along, from this Pont de Somervel northeastward as far as Montmedy, at post villages and towns, escorts of hussars and dragoons do lounge waiting, a train or chain of military escorts. At the Montmedy end of it are brave buoy, an electric thunder chain, which the invisible buoy, like a Father Jove, holds in his hand, for wise purposes. Brave buoy has done what man could, has spread out his electric thunder chain of military escorts, onwards to the threshold of Chalon. It waits but for the new Corf Berlin, to receive it, escort it, and, if need be, bear it off in whirlwind of military fire. They lie and lounge there, we say, these fierce troopers, from Montmedy and Stenay, through Clermont, Saint Menoul to utmost Pont de Somervel, in all post villages, for the route shall avoid Verdun and great towns. They loiter impatient till the treasure arrive. Judge what a day this is for brave buoy, perhaps the first day of a new glorious life, surely the last day of the old. Also, and indeed still more, what a day, beautiful and terrible, for your young full-blooded captains, your Dandoins, Comte de Damas, Duc de Choiseul, Engineer Goglat, and the like, entrusted with the secret. Alas, the day bends ever more westward, and no Corf Berlin comes to sight. It is 4 hours beyond the time, and still no Berlin. In all village streets, royalist captains go lounging, looking off in Paris ward, with face of unconcern, with heart full of black care. Rigorous quartermasters can hardly keep the private dragoons from cafes and dram shops. Dawn on our bewilderment, thou New Berlin, dawn on us, thou sun chariot of a New Berlin, with the destinies of France. It was of His Majesty's ordering, this military array of escorts, a thing solacing the royal imagination with a look of security and rescue, yet, in reality, creating only alarm, and where there was otherwise no danger, danger without end. For each patriot, in these post villages, asked naturally, this clatter of cavalry, and marching and lounging of troops, what means it? To escort a treasure? Why escort, when no patriot will steal from the nation, or where is your treasure? There has been such marching and counter-marching, for it is another fatality, that certain of these military escorts came out so early as yesterday, the 19th not the 20th of the month being the day first appointed, which Her Majesty, for some necessity or other, saw good to alter. And now consider the suspicious nature of patriotism, suspicious, above all, of Bouilly the aristocrat, and how the sour doubting humor has had leave to accumulate and exacerbate for 24 hours. At Pont de Somerville, these 40 foreign hussars of Gauglad and Duke Choiseul are becoming an unspeakable mystery to all men. They lounged long enough, already, at St. Menehould, lounged and loitered till our national volunteers there, all risen into hot wrath of doubt, demanded 300 fusils of their town hall, and got them. At which same moment too, as it chanced, our Captain Dandoins was just coming in, from Clermont with his troop, at the other end of the village. A fresh troop, alarming enough, though happily they are only dragoons and French. So that Gauglad with his hussars had to ride, and even to do it fast, till here at Pont de Somerville, where Choiseul lay waiting, he found resting place. Resting place, as on burning marl. For the rumor of him flies abroad, and men run to and fro in fright and anger. Chalon sends forth exploratory pickets, coming from St. Menehould, on that. What is it, ye whiskered hussars, men of foreign guttural speech, in the name of heaven, what is it that brings you? A treasure? Exploratory pickets shake their heads. The hungry peasants, however, know too well what treasure it is, military seizure for rents, feudalities, which no bailiff could make us pay. This they know, and set to jingling their parish bell by way of tocsin, with rapid effect. Choiseul and Gauglad, if the whole country is not to take fire, must needs, be there Berlin, be there no Berlin, saddle and ride. They mount, and this parish tocsin happily ceases. They ride slowly eastward, towards St. Menehould, still hoping the sun chariot of a Berlin may overtake them. Ah me, no Berlin. And near now is that St. Menehould, which expelled us in the morning, with its 300 national fusils, which looks, belike, not too lovingly on Captain Dandoins and his fresh dragoons, though only French, which, in a word, one dare not enter the second time, under pain of explosion. With rather heavy heart, our hussar party strikes off to the left, through byways, through pathless hills and woods. They, avoiding St. Menehould and all places which have seen them heretofore, will make direct for the distant village of Varennes. It is probable they will have a rough evening ride. This first military post, therefore, in the long thunder chain, has gone off with no effect, or with worse, and your chain threatens to entangle itself. The great road, however, is got hushed again into a kind of quietude, though one of the wakefulest. Indolent dragoons cannot, by any quartermaster, be kept altogether from the dramshop, where patriots drink, and will even treat, eager enough for news. Captains, in a state near distraction, beat the dusky highway, with a face of indifference, and no sun chariot appears. Why lingers it? Incredible, that with 11 horses and such yellow couriers and furtherances, its rate should be under the weightiest dray rate, some 3 miles an hour. Alas, one knows not whether it ever even got out of Paris, and yet also one knows not whether, this very moment, it is not at the village end. One's heart flutters on the verge of unutterabilities. Chapter 2.4. Vi. Old Dragoon Drouet. In this manner, however, has the day bent downwards. Wearied mortals are creeping home from their field labor, the village artisan eats with relish his supper of herbs, or has strolled forth to the village street for a sweet mouthful of air and human news. Still summer eventide everywhere. The great sun hangs flaming on the utmost northwest, for it is his longest day this year. The hilltops rejoicing will ere long be at their ruddiest, and blush good night. The thrush, in green dells, on long shadowed leafy spray, pours gushing his glad serenade, to the babble of brooks grown audibler. Silence is stealing over the earth. Your dusty mill of Valmy, as all other mills and drudgeries, may furl its canvas, and cease swashing and circling. The swanked grinders in this treadmill of an earth have ground out another day, and lounged there, as we say, in village groups, movable, or ranked on social stone seats, their children, mischievous imps, sporting about their feet. A notable hum of sweet human gossip rises from this village of St. Menehould, as from all other villages. Gossip mostly sweet, unnotable, for the very dragoons are French and gallant, nor as yet has the Paris and Verdun diligence, with its leathern bag, rumbled in, to terrify the minds of men. One figure nevertheless we do note at the last door of the village, that figure in loose flowing nightgown, of Jean-Baptiste Drouet, master of the post here. An acrid choleric man, rather dangerous looking, still in the prime of life, though he has served, in his time as a Condé dragoon. This day from an early hour, Drouet got his collar stirred, and has been kept fretting. Hazar Goglad in the morning saw good, by way of thrift, to bargain with his own innkeeper, not with Drouet regular maître de poste, about some gig horse for the sending back of his gig, which thing Drouet perceiving came over in red ire, menacing the innkeeper, and would not be appeased. Wholly an unsatisfactory day. For Drouet is an acrid patriot too, was at the Paris Feast of Pikes, and what do these Bouilly soldiers mean? Hussars, with their gig, and a vengeance to it. Have hardly been thrust out, when Dandoins and his fresh dragoons arrive from Clermont, and stroll. For what purpose? Choleric Drouet steps out and steps in, with long flowing nightgown, looking abroad, with that sharpness of faculty which stirred choler gives to man. On the other hand, mark Captain Dandoins on the street of that same village, sauntering with a face of indifference, a heart eaten of black care. For no Corfe Berlin makes its appearance. The great sun flames broader towards setting, one's heart flutters on the verge of dread unutterabilities. By heaven! Here is the yellow bodyguard courier, spurring fast, in the ruddy evening light. Steady, O Dandoins, stand with inscrutable indifferent face, though the yellow blockhead spurs past the post house, inquires to find it, and stirs the village, all delighted with his fine livery. Lumbering along with its mountains of bandboxes, and chaise behind, the Corfe Berlin rolls in, huge Acapulco ship with its cockboat, having got thus far. The eyes of the villagers look enlightened, as such eyes do when a coach transit, which is an event, occurs for them. Strolling dragoons respectfully, so fine are the yellow liveries, bring hand to helmet, and a lady in gypsy hat responds with a grace peculiar to her. Dandoin stands with folded arms, and what look of indifference and disdainful garrison air a man can, while the heart is like leaping out of him. Curled disdainful mustachio, careless glance, which however surveys the village groups, and is not like them. With his eye he bespeaks the yellow courier. Be quick, be quick. Thick-headed yellow cannot understand the eye, comes up mumbling to ask in words scene of the village. Nor is postmaster Drouet unobservant, all this while, but steps out and steps in, with his long flowing nightgown, in the level sunlight, prying into several things. When a man's faculties, at the right time, are sharpened by choler, it may lead to much. That lady in slouched gypsy hat, though sitting back in the carriage, does she not resemble someone we have seen, some time, at the Feast of Pikes, or elsewhere? And this grossetete in round hat and peruke, which, looking rearward, pokes itself out from time to time, methinks there are features in it? Quick, Sieur Guillaume, clerk of the Directoire, bring me a new assignat. Drouet scans the new assignat, compares the paper money picture with the gross head and round hat there, by day and night. You might say the one was an attempted engraving of the other. And this march of troops, this sauntering and whispering, I see it. Drouet, postmaster of this village, hot patriot, old dragoon of Condé, consider, therefore, what thou wilt do. And fast, for behold the new Berlin, expeditiously yoked, cracks whipcord, and rolls away. Drouet dare not, on the spur of the instant, clutch the bridles in his own two hands. Dandoins, with broadsword, might hew you off. Our poor nationals, not one of them here, have 300 fusils but then no powder, besides one is not sure, only morally certain. Drouet, as an adroit old dragoon of Condé does what is advisablest, privily bespeaks Clerk Guillaume, old dragoon of Condé he too, privily, while Clerk Guillaume is saddling two of the fleetest horses, slips over to the town hall to whisper a word, then mounts with Clerk Guillaume, and the two bound eastward in pursuit, to see what can be done. They bound eastward, in sharp trot, their moral certainty permeating the village, from the town hall outwards, in busy whispers. Alas! Captain Dandoins orders his dragoons to mount, but they, complaining of long fast, demand bread and cheese first, before which brief repast can be eaten. The whole village is permeated, not whispering now, but blustering and shrieking. National volunteers, in hurried muster, shriek for gunpowder. Dragoons halt between patriotism and rule of the service, between bread and cheese and fixed bayonets. Dandoins hands secretly his pocketbook, with its secret dispatches, to the rigorous quartermaster. The very ostlers have stable forks and flails. The rigorous quartermaster, half saddled, cuts out his way with the sword's edge, amid leveled bayonets, amid patriot vociferations, adjurations, flail strokes, and rides frantic, few or even none following him, the rest, so sweetly constrained, consenting to stay there. And thus the New Berlin rolls, and Drouet and Guillaume gallop after it, and Dandoins's troopers or trooper gallops after them, and Saint Menehould, with some leagues of the King's Highway, is an explosion, and your military thunder chain has gone off in a self-destructive manner, one may fear with the frightfulest issues. Chapter 2.47. The Knight of Spurs. This comes of mysterious escorts, and a New Berlin with 11 horses. He that has a secret should not only hide it, but hide that he has it to hide. Your first military escort has exploded self-destructive, and all military escorts, and a suspicious country will now be up, explosive, comparable not to victorious thunder. Comparable, say rather, to the first stirring of an alpine avalanche, which, once stir it, as here at Saint Menehould, will spread, all round, and on, as far as Stenai, thundering with wild ruin, till patriot villagers, peasantry, military escorts, New Berlin and royalty are down, jumbling in the abyss. The thick shades of night are falling. Postilion crack the whip, the Royal Berlin is through Clermont, where Colonel Comte de Damas got a word whispered to it, is safe through, towards Varennes, rushing at the rate of double drink money. An unknown inconnu on horseback shrieks earnestly some hoarse whisper, not audible, into the rushing carriage window, and vanishes, left in the night. August travelers palpitate, nevertheless overwearied nature sinks every one of them into a kind of sleep. Alas, and Drouet and Clerk Guillaume spur, taking side roads, for shortness, for safety, scattering abroad that moral certainty of theirs, which flies, a bird of the air carrying it. And your rigorous quartermaster spurs, awakening hoarse trumpet tone, as here at Clermont, calling out dragoons gone to bed. Brave Colonel de Damas has them mounted, in part, these Clermont men. Young Cornet Remy dashes off with a few. But the patriot magistracy is out here at Clermont too, National Guard shrieking for ball cartridges, and the village illuminates itself, deft patriots springing out of bed, alertly, in shirt or shift, striking a light, sticking up each's farthing candle, or penurious oil crews, till all glitters and glimmers, so deft are they. A camisado, or shirt tumult, everywhere, storm bell set a ringing, village drum beating furious general, as here at Clermont, under illumination, distracted patriots pleading and menacing. Brave young Colonel de Damas, in that uproar of distracted patriotism, speaks some fire sentences to what troopers he has, comrades insulted at Saint Menehould, king and country calling on the brave, then gives the fire word, draw swords. Whereupon, alas, the troopers only smite their sword handles, driving them further home. To me, whoever is for the king, cries Damas in despair, and gallops, he with some poor loyal too, of the subaltern sort, into the bosom of the night. Night unexampled in the Clermontois, shortest of the year, remarkablest of the century, night deserving to be named of spurs. Cornet Remy, and those few he dashed off with, has missed his road, is galloping for hours towards Verdun, then, for hours, across hedged country, through roused hamlets, towards Varennes. Unlucky Cornet Remy, unluckier Colonel Damas, with whom there ride desperate only some loyal too. More ride not of that Clermont escort, of other escorts, and other villages, not even two may ride, but only all curvet and prance, impeded by storm bell and your village illuminating itself. And Drouet rides in Clerk Guillaume, and the country runs. Goglad and Duke Choiseul are plunging through morasses, over cliffs, over stock and stone, in the shaggy woods of the Clermontois, by tracks, or trackless, with guides, hussars tumbling into pitfalls, and lying swooned 3/4 of an hour, the rest refusing to march without them. What an evening ride from Pont to Somerville, what a 30 hours, since Choiseul quitted Paris, with Queen's valet Leonard in the chaise by him. Black Care sits behind the rider. Thus go they plunging, rustle the owlet from his branchy nest, champ the sweet-scented forest herb, queen of the meadow spilling her spikenard, and frighten the ear of night. But hark! Towards 12 o'clock, as one guesses, for the very stars are gone out, sound of the tocsin from Varennes? Checking bridle, the hussar officer listens, some fire undoubtedly ! Yet rides on, with double breathlessness, to verify. Yes, gallant friends that do your utmost, it is a certain sort of fire, difficult to quench. The Corf Berlin, fairly ahead of all this riding avalanche, reached the little paltry village of Varennes about 11 o'clock, hopeful, in spite of that hoarse whispering unknown. Do not all towns now lie behind us, Verdun avoided, on our right? Within wind of Bouilly himself, in a manner, and the darkest of midsummer nights favoring us. And so we halt on the hilltop at the south end of the village, expecting our relay, which young Bouilly's own son, with his escort of hussars, was to have ready, for in this village is no post. Distracting to think of, neither horse nor hussar is here. Ah, and stout horses, a proper relay belonging to Duke Choiseul, do stand at Hay, but in the upper village over the bridge, and we know not of them. Hussars likewise do wait, but drinking in the taverns. For indeed it is 6 hours beyond the time, young Bouilly, silly stripling, thinking the matter over for this night, has retired to bed. And so our yellow couriers, inexperienced, must rove, groping, bungling, through a village mostly asleep. Postilion will not, for any money, go on with the tired horses, not at least without refreshment, not they, let the valet and Roundhat argue as he likes. Miserable. For 35 minutes by the king's watch, the Berlin is at a dead stand, Roundhat arguing with churnboots, tired horses slobbering their meal and water, yellow couriers groping, bungling, young Bouilly asleep, all the while, in the upper village, and Choiseul's fine team standing there at Hay. No help for it, not with a king's ransom, the horses deliberately slobber, Roundhat argues, Bouilly sleeps. And mark now, in the thick night, do not two horsemen, with jaded trot, come clanking, and start with half-paws, if one notice them, at sight of this dim mass of a Berlin, and its dull slobbering and arguing, then prick off faster, into the village? It is Drouet, he and Clerk Guillaume. Still ahead, they two, of the whole riding hurly-burly, unshot, though some brag of having chased them. Perilous is Drouet's errand also, but he is an old dragoon, with his wits shaken thoroughly awake. The village of Varennes lies dark and slumberous, a most unlevel village, of inverse saddle shape, as men write. It sleeps, the rushing of the river air singing lullaby to it. Nevertheless from the Golden Arms, Bras d'Or tavern, across that sloping marketplace, there still comes shine of social light, comes voice of rude drovers, or the like, who have not yet taken the stirrup cup, Boniface Leblanc, in white apron, serving them, cheerful to behold. To this Bras d'Or, Drouet enters, alacrity looking through his eyes, he nudges Boniface, in all privacy, camarade, est tu bon patriote, art thou a good patriot ? C. J. Seuss. Answers Boniface. In that case, eagerly whispers Drouet, what whisper is needful, heard of Boniface alone. And now see Boniface Leblanc bustling, as he never did for the jolliest toper. See Drouet and Guillaume, dexterous old dragoons, instantly down blocking the bridge, with a furniture wagon they find there, with whatever wagons, tumbrils, barrels, barrows their hands can lay hold of, till no carriage can pass. Then swiftly, the bridge once blocked, see them take station hard by, under Varennes archway, joined by Leblanc, Leblanc's brother, and 1 or 2 alert patriots he has roused. Some half-dozen in all, with national muskets, they stand close, waiting under the archway, till that same Corf Berlin rumble up. It rumbles up, all to law. Lanterns flash out from under coat skirts, bridles chuck in strong fists, 2 national muskets level themselves fore and aft through the 2 coach doors. Mesdames, your passports ? Alas. Alas. Sir Sauce, procureur of the township, tallow chandler also and grocer is there, with official grocer politeness, Drouet with fierce logic and ready wit, the respected traveling party, be it Baroness de Corfs, or persons of still higher consequence, will perhaps please to rest itself in M. Sauces till the dawn strike up. O Louis, O hapless Marie Antoinette, fated to pass thy life with such men. Phlegmatic Louis, art thou but lazy semi-animate phlegm then, to the center of thee? King, Captain General, Sovereign Frank. If thy heart e'er formed, since it began beating under the name of heart, any resolution at all, be it now then, or never in this world, violent nocturnal individuals, and if it were persons of high consequence? And if it were the king himself? Has the king not the power, which all beggars have, of traveling unmolested on his own highway? Yes, it is the king, and tremble ye to know it. The king has said, in this one small matter, and in France, or under God's throne, is no power that shall gainsay. Not the king shall ye stop here under this your miserable archway, but his dead body only, and answer it to heaven and earth. To me, bodyguards, postilion, and avant. One fancies in that case the pale paralysis of these 2 Leblanc musketeers, the drooping of Drouet's under jaw, and how Procureur Sauce had melted like tallow in furnace heat, Louis faring on, in some few steps awakening young Bouilly, awakening relays and hussars, triumphant entry, with cavalcading high brandishing escort, and escorts, into Montmedy, and the whole course of French history different. Alas, it was not in the poor phlegmatic man. Had it been in him, French history had never come under this Varennes archway to decide itself. He steps out, all step out. Procureur Sauce gives his grocer arms to the Queen and Sister Elizabeth, Majesty taking the 2 children by the hand. And thus they walk, coolly back, over the marketplace, to Procureur Sauce's, mount into his small upper story, where straightway his Majesty demands refreshments. demands refreshments, as is written, gets bread and cheese with a bottle of Burgundy, and remarks that it is the best Burgundy he ever drank. Meanwhile, the Varennes notables, and all men, official and non-official, are hastily drawing on their breeches, getting their fighting gear. Mortals half-dressed tumble out barrels, lay felled trees, scouts dart off to all the four winds, the tocsin begins clanging, the village illuminates itself. Very singular, how these little villages do manage, so adroit are they, when startled in midnight alarm of war. Like little adroit municipal rattlesnakes, suddenly awakened, for their storm bell rattles and rings, their eyes glisten luminous, with tallow light as in rattlesnake ire, and the village will sting. Old Dragoon Drouet is our engineer and generalissimo, valiant as a Roy Diaz, now or never, ye patriots, for the soldiery is coming, massacre by Austrians, by aristocrats, wars more than civil, it all depends on you and the hour. National Guards rank themselves, half-buttoned, mortals, we say, still only in breeches, in under petticoat, tumble out barrels and lumber, lay felled trees for barricades, the village will sting. Rabid democracy, it would seem, is not confined to Paris, then. Ah no, whatsoever courtiers might talk, too clearly no. This of dying for one's king is grown into a dying for oneself, against the king, if need be. And so our riding and running avalanche and hurly-burly has reached the abyss, Corf Berlin foremost, and may pour itself thither and jumble, endless. For the next 6 hours, need we ask if there was a clattering far and wide? Clattering and tocsining and hot tumult, over all the Clermontais, spreading through the three bishoprics, dragoon and hussar troops galloping on roads and no roads, National Guards arming and starting in the dead of night, tocsin after tocsin transmitting the alarm. In some 40 minutes, Gauglad and Choiseul, with their wearied hussars, reach Varennes. Ah, it is no fire then, or a fire difficult to quench. They leap the tree barricades, in spite of National Sergeant, they enter the village, Choiseul instructing his troopers how the matter really is, who respond interjectionally, in their guttural dialect, Der König, Die Königin. And seem staunch. These now, in their staunch humor, will, for one thing, beset Procureur Sauce's house. Most beneficial, had not Drouet stormfully ordered otherwise, and even bellowed, in his extremity, "Cannoneers to your guns!" Two old honeycombed field pieces, empty of all but cobwebs, the rattle whereof, as the cannoneers with assured countenance trundled them up, did nevertheless abate the hussar ardor, and produce a respectfuller ranking further back. Jugs of wine, handed over the ranks, for the German throat too has sensibility, will complete the business. When Engineer Gauglad, some hour or so afterwards, steps forth, the response to him is, a hiccuping Vive la Nation. What boots it? Gauglad, Choiseul, now also Count Damas, and all the Varennes officiality are with the king, and the king can give no order, form no opinion, but sits there, as he has ever done, like clay on potter's wheel, perhaps the absurdest of all pitiable and pardonable clay figures that now circle under the moon. He will go on, next morning, and take the National Guard with him, Sauce permitting. Hapless queen, with her 2 children laid there on the mean bed, old Mother Sauce kneeling to heaven, with tears and an audible prayer, to bless them, Imperial Marie Antoinette near kneeling to son Sauce and wife Sauce, amid candle boxes and treacle barrels, in vain. There are 3,000 National Guards got in, before long they will count 10,000, tocsin spreading like fire on dry heath, or far faster. Young Bouilly, roused by this Varennes tocsin, has taken horse, and, fled towards his father. Thitherward also rides, in an almost hysterically desperate manner, a certain Sieur Aubriot, Choiseul's orderly, swimming dark rivers, our bridge being blocked, spurring as if the hell hunt were at his heels. Through the village of Dun, he, galloping still on, scatters the alarm, at Dun, brave Captain Dieslins and his escort of 100, saddle and ride. Dieslins too gets into Varennes, leaving his 100 outside, at the tree barricade, offers to cut King Louis out, if he will order it, but unfortunately the work will prove hot, whereupon King Louis has no orders to give. And so the tocsin clangs, and dragoons gallop, and can do nothing, having galloped, National Guards stream and like the gathering of ravens, your exploding thunder chain, falling avalanche, or what else we liken it to, does play, with a vengeance, up now as far as Stenay and Bouilly himself. Brave Bouilly, son of the whirlwind, he settles Royal Allemand, speaks fire words, kindling heart and eyes, distributes 25 gold louis a company, ride, Royal Allemand, long famed, no Tuileries charge and Necker Orleans bust procession, a very king made captive, and world all to win. Such is the knight deserving to be named of spurs. At 6 o'clock 2 things have happened. Lafayette's aide-de-camp, Romouf, riding off Francatire, on that old herb merchant's route, quickened during the last stages, has got to Varennes, where the 10,000 now furiously demand, with fury of panic terror, that royalty shall forthwith return Paris ward, that there be not infinite bloodshed. Also, on the other side, English Tom, Choiseul's jockey, flying with that Choiseul relay, has met Bouilly on the heights of Dun, the adamantine brow flushed with dark thunder, thunderous rattle of Royal Allemand at his heels. English Tom answers as he can the brief question, how it is at Varennes. Then asks in turn what he, English Tom, with M. de Choiseul's horses, is to do, and whither to ride? To the bottomless pool. Answers a thunder voice, then again speaking and spurring, orders Royal Allemand to the gallop, and vanishes, swearing, and jurant. 'Tis the last of our brave Bouilly. Within sight of Varennes, he having drawn bridle, calls a council of officers, finds that it is in vain. King Louis has departed, consenting, amid the clangor of universal storm bell, amid the tramp of 10,000 armed men, already arrived, and say, of 60,000 flocking thither. Brave Deislands, even without orders, guarded at the river Aire with his 100. Swam one branch of it, could not the other, and stood there, dripping and panting, with inflated nostril, the 10,000 answering him with a shout of mockery, the New Berlin lumbering Paris ward its weary inevitable way. No help, then in earth, nor in an age, not of miracles, in heaven. That night, Marquis de Bouilly and 21 more of us rode over the frontiers. The Bernardine monks at Orville in Luxembourg gave us supper and lodging. With little of speech, Bouilly rides, with thoughts that do not brook speech. Northward, towards uncertainty, and the Cimmerian night, towards West Indian Isles, for with thin emigrant delirium the son of the whirlwind cannot act, towards England, towards premature stoical death, not towards France any more. Honor to the brave, who, be it in this quarrel or in that, is a substance and articulate speaking piece of human valor, not a fanfarinating hollow spectrum and squeaking and gibbering shadow. One of the few royalist chief actors this Bouilly, of whom so much can be said. The brave Bouilly too, then, vanishes from the tissue of our story. Story and tissue, faint ineffectual emblem of that grand miraculous tissue, and living tapestry named French Revolution, which did weave itself then in very fact, on the loud-sounding loom of time. The old brave drop out from it, with their strivings, and new acrid droughties, of new strivings and color, come in, as is the manner of that weaving. Chapter 2.48 The Return. So then our grand royalist plot, of flight to Metz, has executed itself. Long hovering in the background, as a dread royal ultimatum, it has rushed forward in its terrors, verily to some purpose. How many royalist plots and projects, one after another, cunningly devised, that were to explode like powder mines and thunderclaps, not one solitary plot of which has issued otherwise. Powder mine of a séance royale on the 23rd of June 1789, which exploded as we then said, through the touch-hole, which next, your Wargod Broglie having reloaded it, brought a Bastille about your ears. Then came fervent opera repast, with flourishing of sabres, and O Richard, O my king, which, aided by hunger, produces insurrection of women, and Pallas Athene in the shape of Demoiselle Théroigne. Valor profits not, neither has fortune smiled on fanfaronade. The Bouilly armament ends as the Broglie one had done. Man after man spends himself in this cause, only to work it quicker ruin. It seems a cause doomed, forsaken of earth and heaven. On the 6th of October gone a year, King Louis, escorted by Demoiselle Théroigne and some 200,000, made a royal progress and entrance into Paris, such as man had never witnessed. We prophesied him 2 more such, and accordingly another of them, after this flight to Metz, is now coming to pass. Théroigne will not escort here, neither does Mirabeau now sit in one of the accompanying carriages. Mirabeau lies dead, in the pantheon of great men. Théroigne lies living, in dark Austrian prison, having gone to Liège, professionally, and been seized there. Demurmured now by the horse-flowing Danube, the light of her patriot supper parties gone quite out, so lies Théroigne. She shall speak with the Kaiser face to face, and return. And France lies how? Fleeting time shears down the great and the little, and in 2 years alters many things. But at all events, here, we say, is a second ignominious royal procession, though much altered, to be witnessed also by its hundreds of thousands. Patience, ye Paris patriots, the Royal Berlin is returning. Not till Saturday, for the Royal Berlin travels by slow stages, amid such loud-voiced confluency of National Guards, 60,000 as they count, amid such tumult of all people. 3 National Assembly Commissioners, famed Barnave, famed Pétion, generally respectable Latour Maubourg, have gone to meet it, of whom the 2 former ride in the Berlin itself beside Majesty, day after day. Latour, as a mere respectability, and man of whom all men speak well, can ride in the rear, with Dame Tourzel and the soubrettes. So on Saturday evening, About 7 o'clock, Paris by hundreds of thousands is again drawn up, not now dancing the tricolor joy dance of hope, nor as yet dancing in fury dance of hate and revenge, but in silence, with vague look of conjecture and curiosity mostly scientific. A Saint Antoine placard has given notice this morning that whosoever insults Louis shall be caned, whosoever applauds him shall be hanged. Behold then, at last, that wonderful New Berlin, encircled by blue national sea with fixed bayonets, which flow slowly, floating it on, through the silent assembled hundreds of thousands. 3 yellow couriers sit atop bound with ropes, Pétion, Barnave, their majesties, with Sister Elizabeth, and the children of France, are within. Smile of embarrassment, or cloud of dull sourness, is on the broad phlegmatic face of His Majesty, who keeps declaring to the successive official persons, what is evident, eh bien et voilà, well, here you have me, and what is not evident, I do assure you I did not mean to pass the frontiers, and so forth. Speech is natural for that poor royal man, which decency would veil. Silent is Her Majesty, with a look of grief and scorn, natural for that royal woman. Thus lumbers and creeps the ignominious royal procession, through many streets, amid a silent gazing people, comparable, Mercier thinks, to some procession to Roi de Bazoches, or say, procession of King Crispin, with his dukes of Sudermania and royal blazonry of cordwainry. Except indeed that this is not comic, ah no, it is comico-tragic, with bound couriers, and a doom hanging over it, most fantastic, yet most miserably real. Miserablest flebile ludibrium of a pickle-hurring tragedy. It sweeps along there, in most ungorgeous pall, through many streets, in the dusty summer evening, gets itself at length wriggled out of sight, vanishing in the Tuileries Palace, towards its doom, of slow torture, peine forte et dure. Populace, it is true, seizes the 3 rope-bound yellow couriers, will at least massacre them. But our august assembly, which is sitting at this great moment, sends out deputation of rescue, and the whole is got huddled up. Barnave, all dusty, is already there, in the National Hall, making brief discreet address and report. As indeed, through the whole journey, this Barnave has been most discreet, sympathetic, and has gained the Queen's trust, whose noble instinct teaches her always who is to be trusted. Very different from heavy Pétion, who, if Campan speak truth, ate his luncheon, comfortably filled his wineglass, in the Royal Berlin, flung out his chicken bones past the nose of royalty itself, and, on the King saying France cannot be a republic, answered no, it is not ripe yet. Barnave is henceforth a Queen's adviser, if advice could profit, and Her Majesty astonishes Dame Campan by signifying almost a regard for Barnave, and that, in a day of retribution and royal triumph, Barnave shall not be executed. On Monday night royalty went, on Saturday evening it returns, so much, within 1 short week, has royalty accomplished for itself. The pickle-hurring tragedy has vanished in the Tuileries Palace, towards pain strong and hard. Watched, fettered, and humbled, as royalty never was. Watched even in its sleeping apartments and inmost recesses, for it has to sleep with door set ajar, blue national Argus watching, his eye fixed on the Queen's curtains, nay, on one occasion, as the Queen cannot sleep, he offers to sit by her pillow, and converse a little. Chapter 2.49. Sharp shot. In regard to all which, this most pressing question arises, what is to be done with it? Depose it. Resolutely answer Robespierre and the thoroughgoing few. For truly, with a king who runs away, and needs to be watched in his very bedroom that he may stay and govern you, what other reasonable thing can be done? Had Philippe d'Orléans not been a caput mortuum. But of him, known as one defunct, no man now dreams. Depose it not, say that it is inviolable, that it was spirited away, was in leave, at any cost of sophistry and solecism, re-establish it. So answer with loud vehemence all manner of constitutional royalists, as all your pure royalists do naturally likewise, with low vehemence, and rage compressed by fear, still more passionately answer. Nay, Barnave and the 2 Lameths, and what will follow them, do likewise answer so. Answer, with their whole might, terror struck at the unknown abysses on the verge of which, driven thither by themselves mainly, all now reels, ready to plunge. By mighty effort and combination this latter course, of re-establish it, is the course fixed on, and it shall by the strong arm, if not by the clearest logic, be made good. With the sacrifice of all their hard-earned popularity, this notable triumvirate, says to Longin, set the throne up again, which they had so toiled to overturn, as one might set up an overturned pyramid, on its vertex, to stand so long as it is held. Unhappy France, unhappy in king, queen, and constitution, one knows not in which unhappiest. Was the meaning of our so glorious French Revolution this, and no other, that when shams and delusions, long soul-killing, had become body-killing, and got the length of bankruptcy and inanition, a great people rose and, with one voice, said, "In the name of the highest, sham shall be no more." So many sorrows and bloody horrors, endured, and to be yet endured through dismal coming centuries, were they not the heavy price paid and payable for this same, total destruction of shams from among men? And now, O barn of triumvirate! Is it in such double distilled delusion, and sham even of a sham, that an effort of this kind will rest acquiescent? Messieurs of the popular triumvirate, never. But, after all, what can poor popular triumvirates and fallible august senators do? They can, when the truth is all too horrible, stick their heads ostrich-like into what sheltering fallacy is nearest, and wait there, a posteriori. Readers who saw the Clermontais and 3 bishoprics gallop, in the night of spurs, diligences ruffling up all France into one terrific terrified cock of India, and the town of Nantes in its shirt, may fancy what an affair to settle this was. Robespierre, on the extreme left, with perhaps Pétion and lean old Goupil, for the very triumvirate has defalcated, are shrieking hoarse, drowned in constitutional clamor. But the debate and arguing of a whole nation, the bellowings through all journals, for and against, the reverberant voice of Danton, the Hyperion shafts of Camille, the porcupine quills of implacable Marat, conceive all this. Constitutionalists in a body, as we often predicted, do now recede from the mother society, and become foyons, threatening her with inanition, the rank and respectability being mostly gone. Petition after petition, forwarded by post, or borne in deputation, comes praying for judgment and déchéance, which is our name for deposition, praying, at lowest, for reference to the 83 departments of France. Hot Marseille deputation comes declaring, among other things, our Phocian ancestors flung a bar of iron into the bay at their first landing, this bar will float again on the Mediterranean brine before we consent to be slaves. All this for 4 weeks or more, while the matter still hangs doubtful, emigration streaming with double violence over the frontiers, France seething in fierce agitation of this question and prize question, what is to be done with the fugitive hereditary representative? Finally, on Friday the 15th of July 1791, the National Assembly decides, in what negatory manner we know. Whereupon the theatres all close, the born stones and portable chairs begin spouting, municipal placards flaming on the walls, and proclamations published by sound of trumpet, invite to repose, with small effect. And so, on Sunday the 17th, there shall be a thing seen, worthy of remembering. Scroll of a petition, drawn up by Brissot's, Danton's, by Cordeliers, Jacobins, for the thing was infinitely shaken and manipulated, and many had a hand in it. Such scroll lies now visible, on the wooden framework of the fatherland's altar, for signature. Unworking Paris, male and female, is crowding thither, all day, to sign or to see. Our fair Roland herself the eye of history can discern there, in the morning, not without interest. In few weeks the fair patriot will quit Paris, yet perhaps only to return. But, what with sorrow of balked patriotism, what with closed theatres, and proclamations still publishing themselves by sound of trumpet, the fervour of men's minds, this day is great. Nay, over and above, there has fallen out an incident, of the nature of farce, tragedy and riddle, enough to stimulate all creatures. Early in the day, a patriot, or some say, it was a patriotess, and indeed truth is undiscoverable, while standing on the firm deal board of fatherland's altar, feels suddenly, with indescribable torpedo shock of amazement, his boot sole pricked through from below. He clutches up suddenly this electrified boot sole and foot, discerns next instant, the point of a gimlet or brad all playing up, through the firm deal board, and now hastily drawing itself back. Mystery, perhaps treason? The wooden framework is impetuously broken up, and behold, verily a mystery, never explicable fully to the end of the world. 2 human individuals, of mean aspect, one of them with a wooden leg, lie ensconced there, gimlet in hand. They must have come in overnight. They have a supply of provisions, no barrel of gunpowder that one can see. They affect to be asleep, look blank enough, and give the lamest account of themselves. Mere curiosity, they were boring up to get an eye-hole, to see, perhaps with lubricity, whatsoever, from that new point of vision, could be seen little that was edifying, one would think. But indeed what stupidest thing may not human dullness, pruriency, lubricity, chance and the devil, choosing 2 out of 500,000 idle human heads, tempt them to? Sure enough, the 2 human individuals with their gimlet are there. Ill-starred pair of individuals. For the result of it all is that patriotism, fretting itself, in this state of nervous excitability, with hypotheses, suspicions and reports, keeps questioning these 2 distracted human individuals, and again questioning them, claps them into the nearest guardhouse, clutches them out again, one hypothetic group snatching them from another, till finally, in such extreme state of nervous excitability, patriotism hangs them as spies of Sieur Modier, and the life and secret is choked out of them forevermore. Forevermore, alas. Or is a day to be looked for when these two evidently mean individuals, who are human nevertheless, will become historical riddles, and, like him of the Iron Mask, also a human individual, and evidently nothing more, have their dissertations? To us this only is certain, that they had a gimlet, provisions and a wooden leg, and have died there on the lanterne, as the unluckiest fools might die. And so the signature goes on, in a still more excited manner. And Chaumette, for antiquarians possess the very paper to this hour, has signed himself in a flowing saucy hand slightly leaned, and Hébert, detestable Père Duchesne, as if an inked spider had dropped on the paper. Usher Maillard also has signed, and many crosses, which cannot write. And Paris, through its 1,000 avenues, is welling to the Champ de Mars, and from it, in the utmost excitability of humor, central fatherland's altar quite heaped with signing patriots and patriotesses, the 30 benches and whole internal space crowded with onlookers, with comers and goers, one regurgitating whirlpool of men and women in their Sunday clothes. All which a constitutional Sieur Modier sees, and Bailly, looking into it with his long visage made still longer, auguring no good, perhaps déchéance and deposition after all. Stop it, ye constitutional patriots, fire itself is quenchable, yet only quenchable at first. Stop it, truly, but how stop it? Have not the first free people of the universe a right to petition? Happily, if also unhappily, here is one proof of riot, these two human individuals, hanged at the lanterne. Proof, O treacherous Sieur Modier? Were they not two human individuals sent thither by thee to be hanged, to be a pretext for thy bloody drapeau rouge? This question shall many a patriot, one day, ask, and answer affirmatively, strong in preternatural suspicion. Enough, towards 7:30 in the evening, the mere natural eye can behold this thing, Sieur Modier, with municipals in scarf, with blue national patriotism, rank after rank, to the clang of drums, wending resolutely to the Champ de Mars, Mayor Bailly, with elongated visage, bearing, as in sad duty bound, the drapeau rouge. Howl of angry derision rises in treble and bass from 100,000 throats, at the sight of martial law, which nevertheless waving its red sanguinary flag, advances there, from the Gros Caillou entrance, advances, thrumming and waving, towards altar of fatherland. Amid still wilder howls, with objurgation, obtestation, with flights of pebbles and mud, saxa et feces, with crackle of a pistol shot, finally with volley fire of patriotism, levelled muskets, roll of volley on volley. Precisely after 1 year and 3 days, our sublime Federation field is wetted, in this manner, with French blood. Some 12 unfortunately shot, reports by counting by units, but patriotism counts by tens and even by hundreds. Not to be forgotten nor forgiven. Patriotism flies, shrieking, execrating. Camille ceases journalizing. This day, great Danton with Camille and Freren have taken wing, for their life. Marat burrows deep in the earth, and is silent. Once more patriotism has triumphed, one other time, but it is the last. This was the royal flight to Varennes. Thus was the throne overturned thereby, but thus also was it victoriously set up again, on its vertex, and will stand while it can be held.